A live look right now at the port city of Haifa, Israel, as concerns grow tonight over the possibility of U.S. involvement in that growing conflict between Israel and Iran. Warning sirens reportedly have activated across multiple Israeli cities as the IDF operates to intercept strikes from Iran.
Back here at home, President Trump spoke today with Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu as Israel is hoping the U.S. will drop a so-called bunker buster on Tehran's most fortified nuclear site. Trump also convened a meeting of his national security team in the Situation Room as he called for unconditional surrender from Iran in a series of posts online. Meanwhile, on Capitol Hill, mixed reaction to possible U.S. involvement.
One way or the other, they've got to end their nuclear program.
I don't think we should get involved until he makes some kind of decision.
Bomb and destroy their nuclear facilities.
Some lawmakers, though, including Kentucky Republican Thomas Massie, say this is not America's war to fight. He has introduced legislation to prohibit any U.S. involvement.
And with more now on this unfolding crisis, we are joined by Kayvon Harris, Associate Professor of Sociology at UCLA. And we know your area of expertise, Professor, is Middle East history, namely Iranian politics and society. We also know this is a conflict that did not really sprout up overnight. Israel and Iran sort of fighting this proxy conflict for decades. Can you give us a little more background on that?
Yes, good evening. We're in unprecedented times right now, although the conflict between Iran and Israel has seemingly been in the shadows for decades. In the 1990s, the two countries were enemies and antagonists. But it was in the 2000s where Iran's nuclear enrichment program became highly scrutinized by the United States and Europe. But at the same time, Israel and Iran were already engaging in a type of shadow war with involved covert operations by Israel inside of Iran's nuclear enrichment facilities and targeted assassination of Iran's nuclear scientists. This temporarily went on pause in 2015, 2016, when the U.S. and partners signed the JCPOA, the nuclear agreement with Iran. That was torn up by the Trump administration in 2018, and harsh sanctions on Iran's economy were reimposed. In response, Iran restarted its nuclear enrichment process as leverage to re-enter negotiations in the hope of a future administration. Of course, I have to remind the audience that several years ago, a major new ground war in the Middle East started after Hamas's attack and invasion of Israel. Over the last few years, Israel has engaged in attacking its neighbors with tactics similar to what was used on Iran, Lebanon, Syria, and in the process taking on and out Iranian assets.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally, on Friday, Israel took advantage of a lull in talks to engage in targeted assassination of top Iranian military commanders and missile attacks and jet attacks on Iranian sites around the country. And since then, we've been in a tit-for-tat war, finally a direct war between Iran and Israel since then.
So, Kayvon, the U.S. Embassy in Jerusalem will be closed through Friday. We're understanding they're citing the security situation as President Trump weighs U.S. strikes on Iran. What does potential U.S. involvement mean?
Well, the U.S. has been supporting Israel in defending itself from Iranian missiles and actively aiding Israel in part of this war. But just a few weeks ago, the U.S. was engaged in a weeks-long process of indirect negotiations with Iran. And it was in this moment when many of us were unsure in which direction the U.S. administration would go. And some reporting came out that the U.S. was actively asking Israel to hold off on any attacks, even though they knew that ones were in the works. It's still a question to what extent the U.S. Actively supported Israel's attack on Iran, but certainly they knew about it beforehand and were already pulling out military personnel from the region before the attack occurred. The danger is that, and as you noted in the intro to the segment, Israel doesn't possess the capacity to penetrate the underground nuclear enrichment sites in which Iran carries out some of its nuclear enrichment activities, only the United States does. So Israel has been asking the United States to actively use its own B-2 bombers and its own bombs to take out these sites, and that's what seems to be possibly in the cards over the weekend or over this week. So the danger would be that this brings forth additional responses by Iran, possibly on easier targets in the Gulf or the region, and an escalation of the conflict beyond regional to hopefully not too much worse, but that's the danger. So it seems like we're in an extremely dangerous moment where the U.S. may enter directly into another war in the Middle East.
Yeah, in the past few hours, it seems like things have been amping up. Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei, who Trump essentially threatened in a post today on social media, then posted on X saying the terrorist Zionist entity must be dealt with forcefully, saying they'll never compromise with the Zionists. So what does that tell you about Iran's position and a possibility of retaliatory strikes on U.S. bases?
Well, the Iranian government doesn't seem to be in the mood to capitulate. The demands from Israel and the United States seem to be taking the tone of unconditional surrender, possibly demands that they know that the Iranian government will not agree to. It seems that the Iranian government is willing to continue negotiations, but not while bombing is continuing. So we are at a position where neither side is willing to put down their arms, and Israel is pressing its tactical advantage for the time being, but is seeming that it's asking, and we'll see what happens if the U.S. gets dragged into this, to carry out further attacks on Iran to degrade its military and nuclear infrastructure.
30 seconds left here. Your study has seen you interact with generations of Iranians. To those Iranians here in LA and the broader U.S., what does the potential future of the Iranian state or Islamic Republic look like tonight?
Well, we have to be careful not to have rose-colored glasses about the possible collapse of the Iranian government. There's not a lot of instances in history where an externally imposed attack on a government, distasteful as many find it, results into a stable replacement of that government with one that other people might prefer. While it could be possible, the danger is that a longer period of chaos, terror, and dislocation in Iran could lead to either an even more hardline government coming out of it, or the existing government having its worst opinion of the West confirmed and refusing to engage in any kind of diplomatic engagement for the medium future.
All right, UCLA Professor Kayvon Harris, thank you for putting things into perspective for us. Thanks for your time tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor.